Good afternoon, everybody. I know you can't respond to me. I wish we were in better circumstances where we could see each other face to face, but this is where we're at. So we represent the AGR assignments. Our directorate name, assignment, is kind of a misnomer because, as you'll see, we are responsible for a lot of programs that are not directly related to assignments. So our focus within our 5 divisions is within the entire airman life cycle. And so we touch on a lot of that. I'm going to have some of my SMEs come out and talk to you directly on the programs that we represent. But on my behalf, Colonel Hyan is our director. Mr. Discern, I'm representing them. We also have approximately 118 members. We have 62 military, 22 of those are RegAF, 35 AGRs, 5 IMAs, and 21 members on RPA helping us out. So with the exception of Guard, we're really a total force. We have 32 civilians working a myriad of programs under very difficult circumstances right now with COVID, and we're very proud that we're able to still meet our mission and our goals with the limitations with teleworking. My SMEs will go into a little bit more detail, but I wanted to cover our 5 divisions. We have Force Development, who handles the development teams. They typically host 54 development teams and school boards a year, to include some special boards like the Step 2 and the Command Chief Screening Board and the Reserve Officer Screening Board, along with officer and enlisted school boards, the EDEB, and the RSSB and the RDEDB. So a lot of acronyms there. They also handle the Joint Officer, KCJ, student outplacement, and other outplacement for IDE and SDE. And they're also transitioning, into more of an assignments management, which is forthcoming. We have AGR assignments, IMA assignments, handles also bonuses, aviation bonuses, enlisted and officer incentive programs, non-prior service, reenlistment, retraining, bonuses, combat rescue, officer bonuses, and incapacitation pay. We also have our Accessions Division, which handles officer, IMA, and listed accessions to include scrolling, processing, accession waivers. We're going to have SMEs from education and incentives, which handles IMA classification, training for IMAs to include formal schools and upgrade training, education services, transition or transfer of education benefits for the GI Bill. They handle all aspects of the GI Bill, a student loan repayment program. And lastly, we have our PIM Management Division, which handles 23 to 25,000 members that are currently in the IRR. And we act as their MPS for the IRR, to include IRR screening, musters, mobilization, reserve services, calculating pay dates. We do a lot more than just assignments, but assignments is a large piece of what we do, as they'll explain in regards to the ART to AGR conversion. That is a large aspect of their workload right now, converting ART positions into AGR and taking on the management of those positions. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our Accessions Division.
Good Morning. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Cole. I am the Chief of the Accessions Division. We have about 25 members on our team, mix of military and civilian. And as Chief Marr mentioned, our primary purpose is to assess officers into the Air Force Reserve. And those come at us in several different fashions. Those could be new officers who've never served before, and they want to come into the reserve in a number of different competitive categories. Those could be inter-service transfers, so officers from another branch of the military that want to transfer to the best branch, the Air Force Reserve, or resigning regular Air Force officers that want to continue serving in the reserve. We take care of everything with regards to those officers and their accession into the reserve. And sometimes that's a complicated process. Sometimes people need waivers, whether those are moral waivers or age waivers. There's all sorts of different eligibility criteria to become a reserve officer. And so we handle the waiver process as well for those that do require those. So that takes up a big part of our work. Occasionally as well, we have officers that require competitive category changes. So as an example, an officer that was previously a dentist or a doctor or a nurse, and now they want to become an awesome personnelist like myself. That's a competitive category change, and there's an entire application process for that. That's another thing that we do within the Accessions Division. So as I mentioned, and you can see on the slide here, what we do, direct officer accessions. So any type of those for our JAGs, SGs, chaplains, health professionals. We also handle OTS and those enlisted members or those members who are not in the reserve yet that want to become officers. We manage the reserve's billets to attend OTS every year. We have about 250 of those. So we manage that program and those seats, helping our young enlisted members become officers eventually. We do a couple different, just a little bit of enlisted accessions matters. So that's only though for members that are going to become enlisted IMA members in the reserve. So we'll handle the appointment of those members into the reserve. And a large part of what we do as well when it comes to creating any officer in the reserve or any component is a function called scrolling. This is a process where we literally fulfill where it states in the Constitution of the United States that the president will appoint all officers. That process of the president appointing officers is called scrolling. And so our team also handles that scrolling piece. Do I have any questions out there with regards to accessions?
I don't see any questions, sir, at this time. If there are any questions and I've just not caught them, feel free to raise your hand out there or type into the chat here in the next few seconds. No questions, sir.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for your time. And if you do have questions later about this program, if you just go on to My Purse and on the far left-hand side, you click on New Hire, you're going to find 4 hyperlinks there that we maintain regularly. And you can find out all about how to become a reserve officer, the waiver process, templates, etc. So thank you everyone for your time.
I do have a question that came in right as you were given that spiel, and so if we could answer this, that would be great. And that question is coming from Mr. Michael Gentry. Where do we find the process for competitive category changes?
So that process is spelled out in AFMAN 36-2032, section 5.10. And it's not that long. I encourage you to take a look at it. And also, I just mentioned our website on MyPurse. If you go out to MyPurse and on the far left-hand side, click on New Hire. You're going to see 4 links there. You're going to click on the first link, and you will see in there brand new, as of a week ago, updated information on the competitive category change process. And you'll also find a template in there for how to submit a competitive category change waiver if you need one, and that the AFMAN will tell you if you need one or not. And of course, if none of those 2 things are answering all your questions, you can just send us a MyPurse message as well by sending that message to New Hire, and it'll flow to our box, and we'll quickly answer you back.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Cole. I don't see any more questions, and if any do come in, again, folks, you're welcome to submit a MyPurse ticket to get that answered. If it's a pretty basic question, I'm happy to pass it forward.
Okay, thank you all for your time.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Lieutenant Colonel Thompson. I'm the Division Chief here at ARPC Assignments Division. My superintendent is Senior Master Sergeant Courtney Strickler. So our division is comprised of approximately 30 total force airmen and civilians, both assigned and on RPA orders to support our mission. So the Assignments Division is broken down into 3 separate branches, which I'll be covering here today: AGR Management, Reserve Assignments, and Special Pay and Incentives. So this first slide depicts the roles and responsibilities of our AGR Management branch. This team is responsible for the assignment function and overall management and health of the AGR program. They work closely with higher headquarters, NAP, and wing commanders, hiring authorities, as well as servicing force support squadrons to support over 5,000 AGRs across the Air Force Reserve. From advertising vacancies to assisting a member separate after completion of an AGR order, our team is involved in all aspects of the AGR lifecycle. So this also includes management-directed reassignments, assignment transactions, processing waivers, and processing both voluntary and involuntary curtailments, as well as AGR continuation decisions, or ACDs. Now, ACD is a fairly new process and replaced the AGR review board. It's mainly used to kind of capture the AGR members' requests for career status and extension on their current orders, or to be released on date of separation. This branch is also responsible for managing the AGR grade ceilings on senior master sergeants, chief master sergeants, majors, lieutenant colonels, and colonels as dictated by statute. They also work in tangent with headquarters and senior leaders regarding the R to AGR conversions. So we work with headquarters AFRIC to fill AGR billets based on what has been identified for conversions. Lastly, the team manages the overall AGR end strengths across the FIDEP by providing metrics, analytics, and recommendations for program execution. Our next branch is the Reserve Assignments branch. So this team is responsible for processing assignment actions for our selected reserve. They work closely with higher headquarters to include the HQ Rio and the Rio detachments, recruiting, wings, and force support squadrons, as well as other organizations within ARPC, i.e. Accessions, the PIM office, AGR management, or special pay and incentives, etc., to support our selected reserve population. This team generates gains and processes assignment orders on personnel reassigned to IMA positions and the participating individual rated reserve program. They also process members reassigned to A&G and AFR units from the IRR and any other points-only status or accession categories, i.e. ROTC. Additionally, this team coordinates and acts as a staffing function on USERA waivers, indispensability requests, which is gaining actively retired members back into the reserve, special duty assignment pay, and works closely with our Reg-F counterparts at AFPC in processing the conditional release for voluntary limited period of active duty, or VLPAD. So our last branch is Special Pay and Incentives branch. This team is responsible for processing and or coordinating on pay actions for aviation and combat rescue officer bonuses, incentive program, extension requests for capacitation pay. The team works with DFAS, higher headquarters, wing commanders, wing career advisors, and the units in supporting both the full-time and part-time reservists. They track, manage, and process the bonus agreements and incentive programs used to help recruit and retain airmen who are serving in the critical skills AFSC. These incentives include accessions, affiliation, prior and non-prior service, reenlistment, and retraining incentive pay. Lastly, they assist members who have experienced a loss of earned income due to injury, illness, or disease incurred or aggravated in the line of duty, serving as that staffing, routing extensions and appeals for incapacitation pay to the approval authority. So all three of these branches, they definitely play a vital role in the management and execution of assignments for the Air Force Reserve. We have information for each from each branch on the My First page, and where you can find processes, any updates on policy, etc. On that page. But I also have my SMEs standing by after this presentation to answer any general questions you may have regarding our programs. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Tongson. I don't see any questions at this moment, but every time I say that, a few come in. So I'm going to give it just a couple seconds here. Or if somebody wants to raise their hand, if you have a complex question that's easier to speak, go for it. Okay, if any questions do come up that can't be answered via My Purse ticket and could be answered quickly by either of the SMEs that we've just had on, I will just forward that. Oh, see, I told you it happens. It happens every time. We've got a question here for you, sir, from Senior Master Sergeant LaChance. For IMA assignment actions, we are required to provide supervisor and AEF information on the cover sheet in order for the detachment to complete 1288s and submit to ARPC, but they never show up once the member is gained. What is the disconnect? Okay. And if Senior Master Sergeant LaChance, if you are on the line, which I think you are since you just sent that chat, feel free to open up your mic and expound on that question.
And I also have, I believe, Mr. Bob Orton online as well. So if Bob, if you want to answer that one, feel free to.
First of all, does that question make sense, or do we need it worded a little bit differently?
No problem. This is Senior Master Sergeant LaChance, and in order to explain it a little bit better, every time we are gaining an individual, whether it's another IMA member or they're coming from active duty, we are required to provide information in order for the DET to complete the 1288, send it to ARPC, they gain the member, we receive the gain action that has been completed. Yet once we start processing the member within the unit, a lot of the information that we were requested to provide to be updated were not updated. So we were just kind of wondering if it's really needed as part of the assignment action from the unit to the DET, or this is just added to the package but not utilized.
Okay, you're talking about, this is Bob Orton, you're talking about the 1288 coming from the active duty unit to the Rio DET?
Correct. So every time the DETs, when we're going to gain somebody, we have to provide what they call it the assignment cover sheet, which they ask us to provide the new supervisor and the AEF indicator on those cover sheets in order for them to fill the 1288 before submitting it to ARPC for processing.
I think I get your drift. A lot of the data elements that are on that cover sheet are not connected specifically to the IMA gain actions that we're doing at ARPC. If you could be a little more specific about it, I could tell you where each data element is updated, but other than that, I think most of the stuff on the second endorsement section is used to gain the member into the IMA position.
I guess bottom line is the information needed in order to process the gain action, or this is just nice to have but not needed? Because a lot of times it does hold some of my in-processing actions.
Which specific data field are you worried about?
Those two that I mentioned, the supervisor area and the AEF indicator. But I don't want to hijack, so we can go offline. And again, I'm more than anything, I'm just interested in,
Sure.
in seeing exactly what's truly needed.
Right. You know, like I said, assignment actions are the vast majority of that input is completed by reserve assignments, but something like the member's supervisor would be updated by the evaluations folks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Orton. And Senior Master Sergeant LaChance, thank you for that. Anytime people have questions, it usually benefits other people, so no problem. And I've got a question here from Colonel Clay. That is, are we working toward developing another system to get rid of RMVS and use something that's more stable, is what she would like to know.
Hey, Colonel Calais, this is Lieutenant Colonel Thompson. I know part of the things that we've been looking at is utilizing Talent Marketplace as a way to kind of work some of that RMVS, that process there. So it's still in the works, but we have been exploring different ways of doing this because we understand that it's a bit dated and there's issues with RMVS, and so we're still exploring that option at the moment.
Thank you, Colonel Clay. Hopefully that answers your question. I do have a question here from Staff Sergeant Singleton that did get answered in the chat, but for those who can't see the chat, I will ask the question and give the answer. And that is, if a member is on an AGR tour and chooses to continue on onto another AGR tour, are they still protected under the USERRA if they started the AGR as an ART at another unit since it exceeds the 5 years, or do they lose their position automatically? Captain Rook at ARPC came on and answered, yes, they are still protected under USERRA, but only up to the 5-year mark, unless they had deployed, and that would extend the 5 years. So I think hopefully that answers that question for you. And you can let me know if it didn't. And it looks like I'm going on to a piggyback question from Senior Master Sergeant Murnane on to Staff Sergeant Singleton's question, and that is regarding you, Sarah, but what if the individual started as a straight GS and they go past the 5-year threshold? So no deployments, I'm assuming, just straight GS position, and that I hopefully I asked that question. Yes, okay. So without the deployments and anything else, if they're straight GS and they go past 5 years, does USERRA still are they still protected under USERRA?
Hey, good afternoon, guys. This is Major Rook, AGR Management. So both an ART having their civilian position tied to their TR or a straight GS civilian would have the 5-year USERRA right. And again, that is limited to 5 years unless there is some kind of deployment, et cetera, that would extend it. So, and those would just need to be cataloged and then submitted.
Okay, Major Rook, thank you so much for coming online. I'm sorry that I demoted you. You were a captain last time I saw you. So, but that's what COVID does. We don't see our coworkers for a long time. So I do apologize. And to follow up, Sergeant Singleton just said, so they do fall off the books after 5 years, is the question.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. So even right now, I'm an AGR that has been called to duty from an ART position at Afric A9. So I was a GS-13 there. So I'm halfway through my time in USERRA. And upon the 5-year mark, the unit will drop from, you will drop from the unit's books.
Thank you. Nothing like a real world example to help answer your question. Okay, I don't see any more questions, and I would advise those who maybe have even more specific questions to just submit a MyPERS ticket. I just lied though, because I said there were no more questions, and now we've got some coming in. Let's see here. From the 624th RSG, member exercise Sarah writes, but the member's position converted from ART to AGR. What happens?
Hey, this is Major Rook again. Sorry, my unmute takes a very long time to unmute. So I've talked with A1X with regards to this, and there are some limitations. They were looking at a time period that the member would be required to be in the ART position prior to it converting to AGR for USERRA rights to still apply. So they were working with A1C on that. I'm not too sure what that time frame was. But yes, even an AGR or an ART that is converted to an AGR position will have USERRA rights back to a similar position at the unit. So it's not, you're not tied necessarily directly to that position, but a like position at the unit is my understanding of it. I can check with A1C to confirm that that is indeed true.
Thank you, sir. Are there any waivers to extend USERRA past 5 years?
Not that I'm aware of. I know there are reasons why it's extended past 5, like deployment, like we've already talked. I'm not aware of a waiver. Again, I'll take that for action and get back to the team on it.
Okay, lots of USERRA questions. I think this might be a final one, but can the civilian position voluntarily extend past the 5-year point?
Voluntarily as in from the unit? So I remember somebody asking that question earlier, and again, I'm speaking outside of my realm a little bit here. But I think there is a way in which the unit that the members left to be called to duty doesn't necessarily have to drop you from the books, and you can continue with those same rights. I don't know if that's true or not, though. Again, I'll ask on that. But I had heard that had happened to another member with a unit that didn't want to lose that member for the rights to return.
Thank you very much, Major Rook. I don't see any more questions. If I missed somebody's question, please re-ask it in the chat or raise your hand. We'll give you a couple seconds. No more questions at this time. Thank you very much, Major Rook and team.
All right. Hi, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Tracy Maestas, and I'm currently the branch chief of the KCJ Management Office. I've been a little bit sick the last couple days, but I'm going to get through the brief as best as I can, and I'm still excited to brief you today, even though I'm not feeling that well. And Sergeant Grant, you're doing an awesome job, by the way. All right, what is force development? I can tell you it's dynamic, it's deliberate, and basically it's heavily dependent upon the underlying processes that you see on the first slide and you'll see on the second slide. But basically these all integrate education, training, and experiences that are basically going to produce quality airmen to meet all current and future mission sets. So let's take a look at the first one. The Reserve Officer Enlisted Development Teams. Okay, so those are led by each functional manager, and they're comprised of other senior leaders within the Corps profession. Your officer DTs are going to meet annually, while your enlisted DTs are going to meet biannually. And the main goal of the DTs is basically to produce airmen who are going to be built from the ground up. So you're talking tactical, operational, and strategic. And then also to provide each airman with individual mentorship on how to basically meet their professional goals and how to best serve the Air Force Reserve. All right, continuous education, as we know, is vital for development, and through the Reserve School Boards, exceptionally well qualified airmen can compete, and that would be to attend short and or long courses. And these courses are meant to propel people, I guess our members into future leadership roles. So there's a return on investment that's expected once members do attend these courses. So you don't just attend and then, you know, go back and live life normally. You attend your course, and if it's a short course, you bring that knowledge back to your unit. But if you go to one of the in-residence, you know, 10 months long courses, you're expected to be placed into a follow-on assignment, and that's something we'll talk about in a little bit as well. All right, so the reserve development plans, that's both for officer and enlisted. These are tools that are used to communicate personal and professional goals to the development team, which I just touched on a bit ago. Members are going to submit their ODP and EDP. The lack of submitting these is basically, you know, you're not going to receive career field senior leader mentorship and could potentially miss out on reserve school opportunities as well. So we highly encourage everyone to fill out their ODP and EDPs. Okay, next is the Joint Officer Management Office, and they direct their attention towards members that are colonels and below in JDAO positions. And they basically track joint credit and help to build qualified joint officers. And finally, for this slide, the Key Command and JDAO Management Office, which is what I do, we track the TR, IMA, and AGR key positions. Those are limited to 3 to 4 years. And then we provide developmental opportunities to members that are basically high performers. So anybody that's been ID'd or placed on like a KPL or attended like a IDE, SDE course, those would be, you know, the high performers we're looking for to place into these KCJ positions. Okay, so student outplacement, that's another process that I directly oversee since it falls under the KCJ Management Office. We help facilitate follow-on assignments to all of our in-resident IDE and SDE graduates, like I just spoke about a bit ago. The goal is going to be them in a position that's commensurate with the skills they gained while attending their course. For example, this year, we're working with 49 in-res students, and starting December, we'll hold the Student Assignment Facilitation Panel. And that panel is co-chaired by General Hegbed and General Berger. And in attendance will be the CFMs as well as NAF commanders, REI, REG, a whole bunch of people. And basically we come together every month and just sort of talk about where we want our students to go. You know, what positions are open and where do they fit into this? And of course, the students have to do a lot of the legwork too. They have to apply, they have to get selected. So it's not just, you know, assignment that's handed to them. There's a lot of work that goes into it. But I guess our panel just helps to vector them towards specific positions. Okay, the Annual Reserve Command Screening Board identifies colonels and lieutenant colonels that have the potential to become wing, vice wing, and group commanders. And then the Annual Reserve Command Chief Screening Board is just that. It identifies high-performing Chief Master Sergeants that basically possess the leadership skills to excel in command chief positions. Okay, this one's my favorite. I'm probably not supposed to say it's my favorite, but out of all the things we do in force development, each year we have the pleasure of holding a special board to promote outstanding enlisted reserve members one grade above their current authorized grade. So that's the stripes for exceptional performers, and our force development team executes this. You know, members submit their applications. It's very competitive, but basically members that are chosen to promote are almost basically promoted on the spot. So talk about being recognized for your hard work. So that's a really awesome board that we get to work with. And the final process included in our toolbox would be the capability to leverage special duty experiences. And that could be through the mentorship on how to use those skills to broaden leadership opportunities that are available to them. So that's basically Force Development Division in a nutshell, and concludes my brief on what Force Development has to offer. Our finest airmen. both enlisted and officers. So thank you for your time, and if you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Hi, Lieutenant Colonel Myasis. This is Master Sergeant Grant.
Hi.
And first want to say that Colonel Clay says you're amazing and you've been incredibly helpful to her as a CFM. So wanted to do a little shout out there. Also, she said she's heard rumors about the current RODP in the VPC dashboard going away. So what system are we going to have, and when do we expect that to be in place?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we have with here. This is like dinosaur stuff. So it's really hard to execute sometimes because of these systems. But, you know, we're doing the, I think everybody has probably heard of My Vector at this point. Basically the development teams are moving in that direction. They're really far in production to the point that they're actually testing, like they're actually having DTs completed through My Vector. It's kind of like beta testing at this point, but by the end of the year, that's the way we're going with the development team. So, I mean, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a big game changer. Hopefully that answered your question, ma'am.
Colonel Clay, I hope that answered your question as well, but feel free to say otherwise. And it looks like she said that it did answer it. So thank you, ma'am. We're going to give it just a few seconds to see if any more questions come in here. They usually do as I get ready to close it out. Anybody else have a question? I would say raise your hand, but I'm not sure I can see the hands right now. So if you do have a burning question and you're unable to type it into the chat, oh, see, look at that. So we've got Senior Master Sergeant Jared Schumann from the 910th, who's also been very helpful in answering questions throughout our chat to some of the folks. So appreciate that, Senior. But his question to you, ma'am, is what higher learning and what higher learning and industry educational opportunities are being made available to enlisted members? It seems that they're quite limited this round.
Sir, are you referring to the courses basically that we board for the EDEB?
Yes. Yes,
yeah.
He is.
Oh, I know. I'm not going to lie, it's been ugly. What was that? This is 2019, we had the fiscal constraint issues, which canceled a lot of courses for both officers and enlisted. And if it didn't cancel it, it basically pushed people into the next year of courses. And then, of course, this year we ran into lovely COVID, which basically did the same, but I would say on a larger scale. So, yeah, the EDEB right now, it's looking grim. We usually have about 50, right around 50 quotas every year. This last year, it was basically canceled. We only had one course that we were able to board, and that was for the enlisted fellowship. So we are working closely with A1KB because they're the ones that handle the quotas. And you know what, I can't tell you right now what it's going to look like, but I imagine we're going to have less than 50 quotas right now because a lot of our classes are NATO courses, and those just aren't being executed right now because of the COVID situation. So, yeah, the quotas are limited, but trust me, we're always talking about how we can increase the opportunities for the EDEB. And it, of course, a lot of it comes down to funding, unfortunately. So, but yeah, sorry, I don't really have any good news on that one.
Well, that's okay. It's Wednesday at least. We're halfway through the week. Okay, so I do have a question from Senior Master Sergeant LaChance, and she would like to know if the courses are being opened up to a virtual setting, kind of like what we're doing with a lot of our own courses, in order to increase participation.
There has been a little talk about that, more for like SOS for the officer side. Right now, I can tell you Harvard, which is a long school tour, the 10-month school tour is actually being executed virtually. All the other ones are in person at this point. Yeah, I think, we want to try to keep to in person as much as we can, because I think you get a lot more out of it. When you're face to face learning the material and surrounded with other students. So I think we don't really want to go virtually, but I could see us for some of the courses maybe doing that, because we're going to totally miss out if we don't do something. But that would be up to A1KB and RE to kind of decide that with ARPC input. But I haven't really heard going to virtual for as the standard. Over.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Not seeing any other questions come in, so yeah, everybody give it up for Colonel Miesis. Wait a minute, this isn't live, never mind. Oh wait, I do have another question. See, every time I open my big fat mouth, a question comes in. So we've got a question here from Master Sergeant Severe, and this individual is trying to find out if attending the AFRIC Chief Orientation course for promotion to Chief for an AFR member is mandatory, or if this member can attend the AD Chief Leadership course, which I assume is active duty Chief Leadership course, but I don't want to assume anything. Master Sergeant Severe, please do feel free to chime in if I've messed up that last part of your question.
I think I would have to, defer answering on that specific course, because that's not boarded under the DPAF purview, so I don't really want to speak on it. I think in the past, I don't know when, maybe a couple of years ago or before, it might have been boarded under us, but it's not. So I don't really want to, talk about. I don't want to give an answer that I'm unsure of. So unless anybody else online from DPAF or DPA in general can answer that.
This is Chief Marr. Was that the question in regards to the Chief Leadership course or the Chief Orientation course?
Hi, Chief. Actually, the member was asking if okay, so I'll just repeat it. If trying to find out if attending the AFRIC Chief Orientation course for promotion to Chief for an AFR member is mandatory, or if this member can attend the active duty Chief Leadership course instead. So I guess trying to see if they can attend the latter course if they can't get into the former course.
I'm tracking. For the reserve, it's mandatory to attend the Chief Orientation course. We don't board that. That's not a boarded course. So when a member's selected for Chief, they're scheduled through AFRC A1KO to attend that course prior to their promotion. Due to COVID and obviously a lot of other circumstances, that's been waived in the past. But it's still a requirement. I have not seen where they've allowed the Chief Orientation course to be supplemented by the other course, the leadership course. So I believe you still do have to attend the Chief Orientation course. But AFRC A1KO is the POC for all of that, for boarding for the Chief Orientation course. So I would check with them.
Hello and welcome. I'm Captain Bobby Jean Johnson, Chief of Personnel Readiness Section here in DPA. I'm excited to be here with you today to share our mission in DPAMX and how it relates to you. Here in DPAMX, we manage over 23,000 personnel assigned to the IRR with a remaining MSO. We do this with a team of 8. We manage the IRR force with various screening methods. Screening methods that we use are annual surveys. So we do this via virtual mail out so through MyPERS and VPC. We do the manual mail-outs as well. We have the annual musters that we're all probably familiar with, but we are looking to go virtual, kind of like in this forum. And then we have our push and pull exercises, which are very limited. We use these screening methods to achieve our overall mission, which is to ensure our IRR force is mobilization and wartime ready in the event of a crisis. And we kind of experienced this with COVID, although we did not end up mobilizing, but it was at the forefront. With that being said, you're probably wondering how this pertains to you in the field. You play a significant role. And the reason for that is you are the last touch point before they are reassigned to the IRR. So we ask you to educate, educate, educate. If they are being reassigned to the IRR within MSO, utilize various venues like the TAPS brief, pre-separation briefs, out processing checklist, and final out. If they have, talk to them at that final out, letting them know that they are still obligated to serve in the IRR. Another big foot stomp for us is if we ask you, please do not reassign the member to the IRR if they should be discharged. So if they're coming up on their ETS, and the reason for that is because they've become a non-viable source for us, and it's harder for us to discharge them out of the IRR. So my brief is short and sweet, but I want to thank you again. This does conclude my portion of the brief, and up next for DPA-MR is Mr. Scott.
Good morning. My name is Bob Scott. I'm the Chief of Reserve Service Programs, and we serve as the MPF for the Individual Ready Reserve, or the IRR. We also do service date verification. We will make changes to service dates through MyPERS tickets, but we also have several other functions that fall under my particular branch, and I've listed those on the slide. But I want to draw your attention particularly to the Key Employee Program. I want to make you aware that if a member is hiring into a civilian position that is designated as a key employee, mission essential employee, or emergency essential employee, they'll be required to be reassigned out of the selected reserve. They're not able to serve in the selected reserve because one of these special civilian positions, they are required to be in place during a national emergency. So they're not able to be mobilized. So that's liable to impact, and actually will impact, your organizations. It's incumbent upon the member to notify their unit that they have applied for and in these cases been selected for a key employee, emergency essential, or mission essential position. But once we get notification from the civilian personnel office at that home station that these members have been selected, we're required by law to have them moved out of the selected reserve. Now the member can go to several different places. They could go to the standby reserve and continue to participate, performing non-paid points toward retirement. If they don't choose to do that, they could also retire or separate. But the basic answer is that if they are selected for one of these positions, they won't be able to serve in the selected reserve at all. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that, especially at this time. We're getting a number of requests to move individuals out of the selected reserve over into this program, and that has a negative effect on those units. So if you can publicize that to your members, that would be fantastic. For service dates, I want to highlight that it is the gaining unit's responsibility to do that initial computation of service dates and make the system updates. Once that initial gain is done, you will be locked out from being able to make changes to the pay date, the total federal commission service date, or the total year's service date. So it's incumbent upon you to make the necessary changes. For instance, if a member has a non-creditable break in service, say for instance they're coming from another branch of service and they've had a break in time, meaning they were in a civilian status, their pay date's going to have to be changed, as well as those other two dates, especially if, those are for officers. But you see them, you will be able, at least in seeing the member come in, you should be able to identify that they've had a break in service, or at least a suspected date break in service. As far as pay dates and other service dates, these two references here are the source docs as far as where you can go to find out what constitutes the reason for a particular date, or what the stipulations are in the AFI about why their due date, for instance, is established the way it is, and that's the date initially entered uniformed service. Why that date is established as it is, it gives you the background behind that. So I recommend that if you haven't gone out to these two references, that you do so that you can determine whether you need to make any changes as the members gain into the unit, or so that you can advise your members if they need to submit a MyPERS ticket. So that completes my briefing. Thank you for your time.
Hello everyone, I'm Staff Sergeant Hannah Smith, and I'm taking over for Matt Sergeant Grant on moderating the briefings for questions. I'm taking questions for both Captain Johnson's briefing from earlier and for Mr. Scott's briefing from right now. I do have one question currently in the queue, and that is from Senior Master Sergeant LaChance, and it asks, who does that for IMAs, the gaining MPF, or the gaining debt?
Are you talking about making the update in the system for the pay dates and such?
Senior Master Sergeant LaChance, do you want to elaborate? So it's in regards to updating service dates.
On that, I'll have to defer. I'm not familiar with the actual process of pulling those folks over as to whether it would be the debt or the unit that would make that update. But it's when that initial gain into that position occurs is when the...
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Sergeant LaChance. I'm sorry, it's me again. But yes, that is correct. I actually do run into a lot of my new IMAs especially when they're coming from active duty to the IMA program, and I'm doing their initial review. Once they're usually gained, I come across a lot of times most of their data is all zero out. Like total fam and all that stuff. I do run into that a lot, and I was wondering, in the gaining process, when they actually execute the gain in PDF, does it route through ARPC for each agency, each section to update what's required to make sure the updates are, catched? Or is it at the MPF level, or is it at the debt level?
On that, Sergeant LaChance, I'll have to defer to the assignments folks. They're the ones that at least as far as I know, they make make some of those changes in the system, but they'd have to answer that question. I'm not familiar with that. Ours is mainly a section that handles corrections after the fact. My concern was just trying to make sure that we, wherever possible, that we can get those dates in right at the outset, but I don't have an answer for your question.
Got it. I should have asked, but I guess I was just going by the briefings, and I thought, okay, that's a question for them. But thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, this is Lieutenant Colonel Thompson. I'm getting clarification on that question now. So so stand by. Thank you.
All right, in the meantime, do we have any remaining questions for either Captain Johnson's briefing or Mr. Scott's briefing? If there are no more questions, we can move on to the next section then.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Senior Master Sergeant Chambers Motley. I am the interim division chief for the Classification and Education and Training section. We are a newly formed team by gaining the Education Services branch with us, but I just want to give you a kind of an overview of what we do. So for For the classification and training section, we handle classification waiver processing, and that is for reserve classification waivers. So those are things that you would find in the Air Force Enlisted Classification Directory or the Air Force Officer Classification Directory, or in AFI 36-2101. We work solely with the FSS recruiters and our RIO detachments, which are service our IMAs. And then we are just like the middle person when it comes to those waivers. We just coordinate them, and then we pass them on to the MFMs and sometimes the Air Force Career Field Managers at AFRIC and for HAF. As far as the individual reserve goes, we handle their training waivers. We also coordinate on those, and those would be waivers that members would be looking for if they already have some experience in an AFSC. So they're looking to waive maybe their OJT time and training, some initial skills training, or possibly CDCs. So we coordinate on those waivers and pass those up to the MFMs at AFRIC. Again, we work with the FSSs and the RIO detachments for this process. The other big piece to what we do is individual reservist training management. So we work very closely with our RIO detachments, the 7 GSUs throughout the world, and manage the IR on-the-job training and formal school. So that's all of the skill level, SEI updates, those that are just coming into a AFSC and need to retrain, and we get those formal school courses requested and processed and back out to the members. Then our newly formed Education Services section, they handle all of the foreign language pay for the IRs, tuition assistance, GI Bill, student loan repayment program. They do some CCAF counseling and education updates, and of course the post 9/11 GI Bill and transfer of education benefits.
Hi, ma'am. We do have one question, maybe two. Where can we find the latest AFOCD or AFECD posted? They used to be on a classifications website that doesn't exist any longer. Was there an update in October? The last one they have is from April 20th, and that's from Colonel Clay.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, Colonel Clay. So they should be out on MyPERS. That's usually where we pull all of our information out. If you just go out and type the Air Force Enlisted Classification Directory, it will probably take you to a classification section in MyPERS to be able to pull that information. But if you cannot get it, I can send it right to you.